I just need to make it clear. Gold is backed by the realities of what choosing individuals do. Gold is the single best fulfillment of the theoretical conclusion that you reach when you develop the use of money through the principle of choice and exchange. That's it. That's what gold is backed by. Gold is backed by reality. This idea that gold isn't backed by anything. Gold is money. There is no other thing that has ever fit the definition that comes from the theoretical derivation of what people will do, given that they want sooner rather than later, and they prefer more to less. That's it. Those two things, and the material reality that we exist in dictate that money is best fulfilled by using gold. That's all there is. This idea that it's not backed by anything is just hogwash.
Back with the one and only Professor Phil, ladies and gentlemen. And I've possibly heard the best theory of the whole reason the government wanted to turn Roe v. Wade to begin with. And it's an argument I hear from a lot of the pro-choicers, and that's, oh, you guys don't give a shit about the baby when it's actually here. You care about it so much when it's in a cell form and not alive, when it's still a fetus. And then once the actual child gets born, they all stop giving a shit.
Yeah.
And what recently happened in Houston,
can I just
100% backs that theory up. Well, hold on. So I just want to fill everyone in. So recently, I saw a clip on the news that a child protection service employee got fired for telling a child that she needs to prostitute for money if she's going to make it in this world. And I keep seeing a story pretty much every week now. There was another 16-year-old in Florida that she wanted to abort the baby. The government made her do it at all. And as I'm thinking doing this, it's like, have they now invented a way to supply their child trafficking ring?
Oh, it makes perfect sense.
It makes sense. Get rid of abortion, so that way all the babies can come. Now you have like 13-year-olds giving babies. They go, you know what? You're not ready to handle that. You're not adult enough right now to fucking raise that kid on your own. So we're gonna take it from you, and then we're gonna put it in to some child protector who's going to tell that kid she has to go do prostitute.
Now, once you hear it, it makes perfect sense.
It doesn't actually. And it's kind of funny. It's like, it's one of those things. It's like, was this shit right in front of our face the whole time?
Oh, well, the stuff with the missing children has been that people have been questioning what our federal government is trying to do about this problem for decades, because I've seen a number of people who have they've undertaken, their own projects to try and figure out what the actual statistics are, and it's very difficult. You can do a search for stats and find articles that have numbers in them, but if you look through enough articles and see how the numbers don't agree with each other, and then you go and you look at the methodologies of how these institutions, gather these numbers and what the requirements are in the different states for the reporting and how reliable the data is, it doesn't seem like any of these people really care about any of it, because it's so weird. All of the stuff that you get exposed to on the front line when you start, it's all presented as an attempt to diffuse people's curiosity. They throw these stupid statistics at you. Now, if I told you just out of the blue, not even having previously discussed this, that there are at least 1,000 children who disappear in this country every year who are directly inserted into child sex trafficking rings, would you be disgusted by that?
Yeah, it would be disgusting, and I wouldn't be that surprised either.
Now that's at 1,000. Now realize that that's a number that pales in comparison to the reality. I would venture to guess that it damn well could be over 100 times that bad, because the statistical, the statistical inquiries and people's ability to actually put their, wrap their heads around the numbers that they're able to find doesn't comply in any way with the picture that the frontline coverage of it presents. It's total BS. And, the way that this whole Roe v. Wade reversal in the Supreme Court has been covered, that in the same vein.
I mean, a lot of states are already forcing women to have babies, like teenagers, birth defects already. They don't care. I mean, how can you force a girl to have her kid and then tell her that she's not ready to have a kid and take it away from her?
Well, does that
make it? I mean, you're a pretty logical guy. Does that make any sense? You're ready to have this kid, but now when the kid's here, but you're not ready to raise it.
Let me give you the framework within which that is not contradictory. It doesn't sound correct on its face, just the two of us sitting here across the table from each other. But then understand, if you don't know what the motivations of the people presenting the content or the policy are, it becomes almost impossible to understand what the substance is of what they're saying. So if you're dealing with a group of people who have basically blanketed the entire country with, positions of authority, elected or appointed or otherwise, just public employees, and they all share this bizarre mentality that basically destroys the innocence of children as soon as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Their first level is abortion. Just the death of an unborn child is paramount to them for some reason. I think it's fundamentally motivated by a ritual of child sacrifice.
If you're going to take the child away and throw it in foster care and then try to put it in your fucking sex trafficking ring, I think abortion's the better option.
Well, see, that's where this methodology really can be seen for how twisted it is. A person being born and experiencing hardship as opposed to death before any experience whatsoever.
Unconscious death.
That's not a moral outlook.
Not a good way to look at it.
That's a utilitarian outlook.
An unconscious death would just be like pulling the plug on an old person.
And does it not result in treating individual lives as things to be added and subtracted on spreadsheets?
Yep. And
that's not a result that any human wants, I don't think. And you ask any person on the street if they want to be treated in a way that equates to being a digit on a sheet, nobody is going to respond in the affirmative to that. But so many of the things that they support do equate to that, and they don't understand it. I mean, at its base, it's really, really sad.
Yeah, of all the different motives I've heard for the reason of wanting to overturn Roe v. Wade, that one makes the biggest sense. And just the whole population control, because I want to say we've been having less babies over the years.
Oh, the birth rate,
that's been on a steady decline.
The birth rate of people that are born in this country, the average birth rate isn't even replacement, which is 2.1, supposedly, apparently. I mean, makes sense.
Yeah.
But, it's not that. It's not 2. I don't even think it's 1.5.
Yeah. Let's look it up. What's the statistic? The birth rate? 2022.
Birth rate of the native-born population, because the birth rate
of the native
birth rate amongst
population.
Immigrants is, I don't know, 4 or something.
This is just from a
something ridiculous.
Google search. Is this the website that I want right here? Center for Immigration Studies? No. Or native born. So I just want to do USA. Rather, the U.S. birth rate has continued a steady descent. As of 2020, the U.S. birth rate was 55.8 births per 1,000 women. So it's 55.8. So out of every 1,000 women, about 56 kids are being born.
Yeah, well,
because you can't have 0.8 of a kid. 1,000 women, 56 kids. 56 of those women are having kids.
Well, or you could just say 558 per 10,000. That's what that really means.
Yeah. That number does sound significantly low.
That's a different
Holy shit.
That's a different measure.
Here, the birth rate. This is what we want. Historical birth rate data. The current birth rate for the U.S. in 2022 is 12.012 births per 1,000 people. 0.09 increase from 2021.
I mean, there's so many different ways that you can measure it. The one that
There really is.
The one that I'm familiar with is it's basically what's the average number of people that people generate, and that's where the 2.1 comes from.
Okay.
Because if you don't have at least 2.1, you're not replacing your population.
So is that per kid? Like every person has to have 2.1 kids, or every couple? Because technically a couple. So
well,
every
if you
every
have
couple
a couple
has to have 4 kids.
No,
then, is what you're saying.
No, a couple has 2 children.
Okay.
Each one of those 2 people has had 2 kids, and that's the measure that we really want to see.
That makes sense.
I think that right now in the U.S., the native born rate it's less than 1.5.
Yeah.
I can't remember exactly what it was the last time I saw it, but it's low.
They're running out of fucking babies.
Yeah, I mean, you can.
They're running out of babies to kill, dude.
That's just
what
another.
Honestly, I think it boils down to. I think these are the 2 main reasons for them wanting to overturn Roe v. Wade. It's the steady descent in the U.S. in population growth for the U.S., which ultimately affects their sex trafficking ring and what they can do with kids. Because if they cared about kids that much, they wouldn't be taking them away from their parents to begin with. I mean, you could fucking go down a rabbit hole on what happens to a kid mentally when they're raised in foster care, but to not having their biological mom and dad there.
Yeah, I mean, you can speculate to infinity.
Yeah,
on it.
I know. Well, here, should we watch this? Should we watch this clip here? So this is the actual news clip, not the exact one that I saw. I was just watching the news at my house. I was watching some mainstream shit. I mean, I suppose this is Fox 26 Houston, but this is where the child protection lady told this 14-year-old girl who was in foster care to have sex in exchange for food.
Yeah.
And welcome back to The Factor Uncensored. Imagine a state worker telling a 14-year-old foster child to sell her body if she wants to eat. That's exactly what a Houston family says a now fired Child Protective Services worker did. The 14-year-old, who is in the custody of the state,
another person getting busted by smartphones,
handed it over to her mother and their attorney. Take a listen.
I want to my people to live with some let him teach. That's how my mama taught me. You're going to be a real I mean, but I'm just old now, so I'm days down. I got to check.
So it's really quiet here, and it's a lot of, they bleep out a lot of the cuss words.
Oh, they always do a terrible job when they do these on the news.
So I can barely make it out what she's saying, but they do have some in parentheses. And to me, what it sounded like when I was listening to it off air too, is just like, oh, my motherfucking taught me how to be a hoe. You gotta do what you gotta do so you can eat. Now I can't be a hoe anymore because I'm old and shit, but I can fucking teach you how to be a hoe.
Yeah. And everybody's mystified as to, where these statistical imbalances in different communities come from. I mean, it's that,
so Keisha,
it's that
when your daughter first told you this CPS,
actually, like
this state
17th century poor white culture. So what's so crazy about it is that we actually have a population of a specific, superficial characteristic who make claims to culture and this we and gotta and gimme and you owe me, and their behavior that they absolutely refuse to denounce for its poor outcomes, just poor outcomes being a direct result of this culture that they champion for themselves. And it's the transition from a poor white population under another political authority and its transplantation onto them as a group, as a way to keep them where they are, didn't even happen that long ago. And it's an absolute brainwashing campaign. Yep. The fact that that this type of behavior is so pervasive within these cities where all of these problems are occurring, it's pure evil. And that actually, it gives me a good opportunity to insert this little blurb that
you came up with in your head,
that I generated off of this supposed clip that they've got of some guy. It's a CNN clip, and the guy makes this claim that he was an anti-abortion crusader back in the 70s when he was younger, and now he just regrets his participation in it completely.
So now he supports abortion.
So basically what CNN did is they recruited some guy to tell a story so that he could compare Christians to Nazis. I feel like, somebody who joined one of the fascist parties in the 30s and then had to look back after World War II and see what happened. So that's what he's doing. He's making the comparison that those people who supported this absolute psychopathy with the National Socialism and this, this undertaking of conquering Europe and the world and everything, and people who wanted to stand up against this never-ending push to turn human life into everyday refuse. He's equating the people who are fighting the same concept today to the people who carried out the atrocities of the past. I mean, I don't know what has to happen to a person to have them consciously make the decision to generate that kind of an inherent contradiction in their head. I think it's a perfect illustration of what the absolute fallacy that the CNN anchor opens the segment with. And she starts asking him about, how do we move forward? How do we navigate this world of opposing values? So what she did there is she created a false equivalency. She basically said that we have this particular issue, and there are equivalent sets of values that are in contrast with each other. A set of values doesn't create contradictions like that, does it?
It shouldn't.
No, it can't if you're actually using the definition of the concept of a value. What's actually taking place is the opposition between values. When you value something, you consider it worthwhile to put something into it.
Mm-hmm.
You engage in an act of valuation, and you personally invest in those values.
Whether that's time,
you can
emotion,
use it. You
money.
can use it as an economic analysis. You can also use it as a
relationship with the person too.
Yes, relationship. All basically, it applies to all things because it's a praxeological approach.
Mm-hmm.
Human beings making choices. Economy is the best studied subsect of praxeology, and then you can apply it all over the place to all sorts of things. Virtue and value and morality and all of these things. None of those fields really have any prominent people that have put forth much of anything to challenge the positivist, the materialist bullshit views where you overpay morons with worthless degrees at universities to gather data and then make stories.
Random question.
They write stupid stories about the statistics they gathered, but they don't do any science. They just write down numbers and make shit up. They never have an actual theory. What they do is they say there are these mystical forces making everybody do things, and then it's
Those
our
mystical
job.
forces that are making people have sex with each other.
It's our job to find the racial disparities in outcomes, to impose things to correct these nebulous forces that make everybody do everything. It's complete nonsense. It's not scientific at all. What you would do is you would create a hypothesis that says, well, based on these things that we know, if this is the change, this will be the conclusion. The praxeological approach does that perfectly. It predicts all of the poor results that we get from all of the terrible policies that we carry out. It tells you that it's not going to work, and it doesn't, and yet it still gets just completely ignored by the people who claim to be doing everything scientifically and never do any real science. But it's values in opposition to wants. Now, what's the evidence for the idea that the opposition is basically it's just a set of wants? Well, take your pick. On every particular detail of these situations, it's just that's just what they want.
But see, most people value.
There's no value.
But most people value their wants more than their needs. Is what it is.
No, they prefer their wants.
Okay.
But that's not.
If they prefer them more, don't they value them more too?
That doesn't represent something that you value.
What up, Ginger Jesus?
Just you can't. If it's something that you value, and that's what you prefer, you're willing to put something into it. If it's just something that you want, you will use political means to get it.
It's kind of off topic, but I want to ask you before I forget. Because while you were kind of going on your rant there, it like popped in my head. Do you think a utopia will ever exist? People don't know, like utopia basically means no crime, right? People just living in peace and harmony.
Not in a material reality.
We'll ever be able to get there?
No, a material reality precludes the concept. And that's why
because material reality creates too much greed in the people.
Well, the material reality that we exist in already includes
because material reality can
beings
exist.
Of will who have chosen to violate the applied requirements, and so everything will be dysfunctional until it all ends. Because there's always going to be that element of people who don't want to go along with what's true.
Yeah. And how do you weed that out?
You can't.
How can you create the perfect utopia?
You can't. Because everything
someone's always going to take the bite out of the apple.
Every increment of time that passes creates a material deficit that requires effort to backfill. Like eating and drinking. It's the easiest way to illustrate it. If you output more effort than you take in potential effort through eating and drinking, you'll eventually keel over and die once you've worked out the excess that your body naturally maintains. When you're in a sufficient cycle of intake and output. And people's ability to use political means to get their input always creates a deficit in somebody else's input. That's the definition of it. And when that is your only means of implementing whatever it is that you're placing at the top of your list of preferences, that's not that's not a value. That's a want. And, people can want all sorts of sick shit.
Well, let's continue this clip here. This news clip. Listen to this title. The moral roots of liberals and conservatives. It's a TED Talk.
Oh, I
feel
can
like
almost guarantee that segment's garbage.
Oh, I think we might have to dig into it a little bit later. If we got time.
Told her to go out and prostitute. What did you think?
So this is now for people listening, this is the news anchor interviewing the parent, or I think just the mother, actually, of the child.
I was really blown away. Like I was really blown away. I was shocked that a state worker that was there supposed to protect children would say something like that to my child, it made me wonder of like how many other kids she have told this to. Because if like she could just bluntly come out and say this to my child,
That's not the first time she said
not the
that.
first kid she has
to a
told
kid,
this to.
guaranteed.
No, take a page
Now,
out
your
of their own
14-year-old
book.
was there because you needed help.
Everybody who
with it,
gets
right?
caught drunk
so
driving
That's
has,
the first time they did
on
it.
average, done it 400 times already. So whoever this CPS worker is, you can guarantee that based on however long they've been there,
They've done it a few hundred times.
numerous other children.
You make a good. That was
have
a good
been
way to
pushed into making a decision like that by this one person. Now, understand the structure, and this brings me back to another thing that I was talking about earlier. This structure, any structure born of political means, will produce people that behave that way. They make, the positions are open to the public, so they claim that there's no additional justification required for creating these positions to carry out all of these functions based on the wording in policies and their ability to threaten enough force that people will continue to pay their taxes. The entire thing is a regime of force, deceit, and just evil motivation. Just terrible. There's no element of it that is good in any way. And so it attracts people who have absolutely no hesitation concerning what is the methodology by which I'm actually maintaining my existence. Most people don't ever think about that. They never do. They look out at the world, and it has presented them with this cornucopia of different positions and things that you can pursue. Wherever there's a necessity to cover up the true motivations of why the position exists, it's just presented as being a public good. It just has to be there. One of my favorite targets.
For the sake of our community, for our kids.
Oh yeah. Well, who would build the roads? And the public teachers, the public school teachers, collectively, maybe bear the single greatest blame right now, because if you can't
blame the
see
teacher?
its
Is it all
dysfunction
to
when
blame
you're
on
in
the
it,
teachers though?
no, it's an identifiable flaw in the overall situation in this country, and yet there's almost none of them willing to step forward and do anything about their own dysfunction. I mean, the way they participated in the damage done to the development of the kids that are school age over the past 2 years, I can't even imagine being a part of it. I mean, how do any of these people justify to themselves receiving any income whatsoever from what they've done over the past 2 years? I mean, they're publicly funded criminals. And now pile that on top of Roe v. Wade and the child trafficking. Just think of how many more
kids dumber intentionally to trick them into doing things like prostitution.
How many more of these kids are going to be failures at the age of high school graduation
there's a correlation
than would have been had they not gone through this whole just absolutely asinine COVID freak out, and then allowing these teachers to use this union garbage to strong arm them into stretching this out as long as they have. There are still school districts with teachers bitching about masking. They're insane. And every single one of the people in the leadership of these national teacher unions, they should all be put in prison. They conspired to carry this out against millions of kids. I don't know what else you can call it. This is not just a mistaken line of policy decisions made in a panic over, something that was going to have a great impact. They knew very early on that kids were not being taken out by this. It was absolutely ridiculous. And 80% of the population experience no symptoms whatsoever. So the idea that approach had to be taken, I'm sorry. The approach that should have been taken is keep all of the kids in the school, let every class of 20 have 4 kids who get sick and stay home for a month, and then get back to it. What in the hell was this? This is the least inefficient. I just don't.
I feel like it was
There's
a push.
no describing it.
I think with AI and all this shit, I know Phil was going to say there's no such thing as AI, but I think it's more so, I say that because I think it's a push to get kids to learn more through AI and just, I should say digitally.
Not learn.
Digitally on the computer.
To accept programming.
Yes.
Dude.
Well, think how much cheaper it is for them if they could just teach, if say kids 1 through 6, or even just say, fuck it, just do 1 through 3. But just basic addition, those first few grades where you learn just basic reading and basic math.
Which is the only level of schooling that anybody should have any authority over. Turn people into functional digesters of information and then let them develop on their own. Mm-hmm. You need to learn how to add, subtract, multiply, and divide. And you need to learn how to read and write up to at least a certain size vocabulary where you can understand basic concepts, follow instructions, and communicate what needs to be done to other people. That's all that needs to. You don't even need to teach any of these kids any history. If they're interested in it, they'll go and learn it. I learned more doing the stuff I did on my own than I ever learned in school. And it's always true. These people, these school people, they're some of the most dysfunctional, useless people in our entire country. Most of them can't teach. That should be obvious with the proficiency rates. I mean, if the proficiency rate is 50% at its best in Massachusetts, most of the states, well, you go down to some of them mid-southern states. Holy smokes, dude, man. Yeah, they got the reading or math. They'll have proficiencies in the 20s and then 30s or teens and then 40s or whatever. It's absolutely atrocious.
And that's public schooling, though, mainly.
Of course.
Are private schools included in that? Or do they just grab that statistic from public schools?
The private schools would never allow themselves to be patched in with that nonsense. Because private schools are delivering a product.
Yeah.
The public school system is delivering a public good. And public goods don't exist, so they don't have to deliver anything. There's one lesson that people should absolutely need to learn. There's no such thing as a public good. I mean, honestly, if you really want to jumpstart your ability to reason about any of this stuff that's going on, just dissuade yourself of the existence of public. Makes it a lot easier to understand what's happening.
You don't even need a science when you think about it.
No.
Like, I liked taking science class, and that was really cool. You know what I mean? It was like, when you're a kid, I feel like that's the subject that's easy to get kids excited about and learn. Math for me was tough. Like, reading for me was tough. Like, to get like enthusiastic about, like, I want to learn this. Science, though, outer space, aliens, stars. Yeah. It's just, science has just that, it's got that swag to it.
And the more that you want to,
easier to get kids into.
The more that you want to develop your understanding about something, the better practiced and more time you'll spend. That will inherently develop your reading and your math.
Mm-hmm.
So, one of the easiest ones is with little boys. Just get them interested in baseball.
Yeah.
All of the basic arithmetic math is in baseball stats. If a kid gets interested in baseball, he'll know enough math to do whatever by the time he graduates high school, regardless of how many stupid teachers shove shit in his face on a chalkboard. It's not that hard. Well, and not to mention, if you didn't get rid of cash and turn all of these children into just mathematically illiterate dumbos with their stupid phones, I mean, you walk into a convenience store, these kids can't make change, and then if they're paying for something, they do stupid things like they'll hand $19.99, they'll hand you a 20 and a penny and expect $1 back.
Yeah. I know they do funny shit like that.
They don't know. They have no
It's not
idea
even
what they're
just kids.
doing.
How many times have you been bartending and someone gives you some weird amount of like
Oh, it
money?
happened over and over and over again.
Almost
But
every
now,
shift.
there is almost no cash. Everybody's so invested in these damn electronic anchors. They put their entire life on the dang thing.
It was a
Oh, my
dude.
God.
Some of them felt like they had no choice, dude. Dude, people. And
Well, a lot
when
of
you
people haven't.
Think how much more of a panic a person has, dude. This happened about a fucking year ago. I was at Sprint before they got bought out by T-Mobile. I was just there for, I forget what I was there for, but there was this gentleman. He was like losing his mind. He was crying. He was freaking out. He couldn't get his phone charged. He's worried that something like getting his account hacked. I don't know, because I was just sitting there waiting for like my turn in line, basically, and I'm just witnessing this guy in his mid-40s just about to have a heart attack. I mean, he goes running out of the store. No, it's to the point where you felt really bad for this guy. You know, I'm just thinking like, okay, obviously he has to be accountable to an extent where how much shit are you going to do on your phone and online and not have any form of backup? You know what I mean? If your phone does, I think his phone like broke and he couldn't get it charged and his shit was getting hacked. That's what he was saying, at least, you know. But you would think if you invested that much on your phone, like I'm on my phone a lot too, and I do a lot of financial stuff on there. That's how I send my like landlord to rent. They live in a different state and whatnot.
Yeah.
But even then, I make sure I go through the precautions. If I ever get my phone stolen, if it ever breaks or something, I can access shit on a different device or go to the bank and I have all, you know, whatever the safety phrases is to get back in your shit.
Yeah.
This gentleman obviously did not do that. And I wonder, so my point is what I'm making is they got people so fucking invested in their phones now. And like as Phil said, they put their whole life in there. It's like you literally, when you lose your phone now, but like remember when you had a flip phone? Who gives a shit? Okay, it sucks it costs you a few $100 maybe. Got to go buy a new phone. But it doesn't cost you your life.
No.
Losing your phone nowadays can cost you your life.
Well, people dedicate themselves way too much to the attention that they get through things that never actually materialize into human beings. I think that's one of the biggest problems facing everyone. The social media thing, it's got people.
I'm not even talking about social media, dude.
It's just one aspect of it.
Yeah.
But like all of the money
Apple Pay.
apps,
yes, the Google
all of this
Pay,
money app
the Samsung Pay.
It's a cancer.
That's what I'm talking about. Dude, some people, have you been at X Golf yet? And people have been like, you got Apple Pay?
Oh, yeah.
Or you got G Pay? And you tell them no. They don't have any other way to pay for shit.
No, they're idiots.
Sometimes. It's like they only know how to fucking do this with their phone.
Yeah, that's what useless
Pay for
trends do. Well, that actually goes to it. Okay. How all of these entries, they come into view all at once. Technology doesn't liberate people. I hear this idea over and over and over again. It doesn't liberate people. Do you know what it liberates time? Technology can, when used correctly for actual, productive purposes, it can liberate time. And these are the little points that I took down that go in combination to represent what I'm actually trying to say. Human action is an exchange. Every action that we take can in some way be represented by an exchange, either interpersonal or intrapersonal on your own. Human action can't change the world. The world operates on principles that we can discover and understand better, but we can't change them. And nothing we ever do will ever change them. So the idea that anything is, that we're somehow tearing down controls, no, everything still operates the same way. We just understand it better. So these people treat technology as if the new gadgets that they come up with to take better advantage of, these different degrees of understanding, like they're creating something, but that's not what it is. Creation is what led to what we can observe and understand. We can't create anything. And when you have a new piece of technology, all it does is it exchanges or substitutes existing possibilities for one another. You see what I mean? There is no creating a new possibility.
Mm-hmm.
That possibility already existed. We just found it. And maybe it's not obvious why that distinction makes a difference. Treating new technology like it's an iteration of something that we generated in and of ourselves is a mistake. People should be thankful that we can understand well enough to generate new technology.
Mm-hmm.
That humility that's missing from the contemporary approach is what's so harmful.
I just want to say real quick, I'm not trying to bash anyone who does use GPay or Apple Pay, because I do think that, as I was saying, it is cool that they invented that shit. Phil, you probably don't like it like morally, but from a consumer standpoint and someone who's just, I love technology, obviously, and fucking different gadgets, I do respect the fact that they are able to invent something like this and maybe able to use it. You know what I mean? It's cool. Okay, I can load up, like, I don't have to bring any cash to me. I can throw like a couple $100 on my phone and I can just fucking pay for shit when I'm at the food truck fair or wherever I am. But
See,
it's important to note that all these apps they're just a medium of exchange. I want to say. All it is, it's just a way for you to transfer money and spend money through another middleman.
Yeah, well,
Which with the Bitcoin, they take away all that.
no, they don't.
There is no middleman.
The exchanges are the middlemen.
There is no middleman with that. Not if I have it. If I have it on my cold storage wallet and I just send my address directly to your address,
I don't have an address.
there's no middleman.
And that's where it fails.
Oh, you'll get one eventually.
If you ever deal with somebody who doesn't have any of that, you have to go to the middleman. And they're going to keep it that way. It's
Yep.
never going to escape that. People have to understand that cryptocurrency is just another step away from real money that they will have even better control of. That's why they hate cash now. They hate cash because it can make trips that they can't record. And that makes them really angry.
Yeah, you can trace where that fucking $1 bill came from. Did it come out of stripper's ass? If so, what stripper's ass did it come out of? What strip club did it come from?
And this is this brings up a great
A lot of
distinction to
buttholes
make.
that $1 bill could have been in.
Why is it important for anyone to know how many times a particular dollar changes
It's been up a
hands?
stripper's butt.
Why does anybody need to know how many times a dollar changes hands?
So they can know who's buying shit. I don't know.
Okay.
Can you see who's buying shit and who's buying what?
Okay.
Maybe. I'd be interested to see a stat on a product that's predominantly bought with cash, but there's no way to test for something like that.
Well,
And I don't even know if something like that fucking matters, but that's just how it's, with the question you asked me, you know what I mean? What's the point of doing it? That's just what I thought in my head. So
now, if you're a general, market participant, you generate an income for yourself and you go out into the world to purchase goods and services. Now, if that's all there is, the more information you have, the better you can be at getting prices that are beneficial to you. And same thing for the people who are doing the selling. In reality, all of the participants are both buyers and sellers at different points within the market. So there is no general interest one way or the other. In that kind of an environment, there's no such thing as a price control. There's no such thing as a price ceiling or a price floor. And there's nobody participating who isn't both a buyer and a seller. When it comes to all of the technology and all the gadgets, that were the environment that it was operating in, it would be fantastic because you'd be dealing with private entities that actually maintain a money supply that's actually money. And then people could transact that money with each other as many times as need be to do whatever it is they're trying to do. Because it's all voluntary. Who cares how many times a dollar transacts? The only reason you need to know the number of times is if you want to control it. Any particular individual or entity interest that is purely composed of the market and only interacts in the market, the only transactions that they're concerned with are the ones that they can use to figure out what their pricing is going to do. And when you're in a pure market environment where I think everybody's pretty well established just mentally in the idea of people getting better at doing things over time. So if people get better at doing everything, that means that there will be more produced, and in general, prices will fall over time. So that's the single best way to identify whether or not you're actually operating in a market environment. Prices generally fall over time.
I think that's.
Can you remember that ever happening in your life? No.
I think that's a good segue into the second part of this episode that I want to talk about. And that's with one of my new favorite YouTubers, actually. His name is Matthew Crater, but his channel is called Trader University. This guy he's been my newest crypto guy, and he's not one of those guys who I'm talking about reading charts about it. He's more about the actual economics of it, the philosophy of it, how it works, how it will affect society, what governments think about it. He makes a lot of comparisons to gold with Bitcoin. And this video specifically, we're talking about, is Bitcoin backed by anything? And he makes the argument that gold isn't backed by anything either.
And I will demonstrate how trying to show that Bitcoin is anything other than an expense and that gold isn't backed by anything, these two views, that they're just, they
So
don't
I'm going to go back
out.
a couple minutes here. I really like this first. He starts off with just asking, are US dollars backed by anything?
And this part, I really like how he does it.
No, I really like this, what he explains right here, too. So for people watching, this is channel name Trader University by Matthew Crater. Title of the video is Bitcoin backed by anything, starting at 205.
Hands on some US dollars in order to pay your taxes in the US to the IRS. They will not accept euros, yen.
Hold on, let me go back a little bit.
Redeemable for gold. Are US dollars backed by anything in this modern era of fiat money? In a sense, US dollars are backed by guns, by police, by jail. You need to get your hands on some US dollars.
American dollars are backed by badges and guns. That's something Phil's been saying since fucking, I think, episode 3. Badges and guns. And that's the only thing your money is backed up by in this country.
Once it's fiat currency, that's all there is. And the lingering historical connection to what was previously a money substitute, which was then abused and then replaced with a fiat currency. It's always the same. It's the same story every time.
So we're going to continue the video here.
To the IRS, they will not accept euros, yen, or Bitcoin at this point. Number 2, US dollars, in a sense, are backed by proof of war. We've talked about this many times on the channel. If you want to sell your crude oil, if you're a crude oil producer, if you want to sell your crude oil for something other than US dollars, and you don't have nukes like Russia does, you end up like Saddam Hussein or Gaddafi. And I'll link to this article about Gaddafi, African gold, and how he was trying to sell his crude oil for euros and gold. So US dollars are no longer redeemable for gold, but they are in a sense somewhat backed by the threat of violence. Now, gold bugs are always telling us, gold bugs are just people who really like gold. Gold bugs are always telling us that currencies need to be backed by gold. And at the same time, though, gold bugs tell us that gold is money. So
they're saying, he's saying fiat currency is backed by gold. And that's what a lot of people say. He brings up a good question, and that's, what is gold backed by?
Okay.
And I just want everyone to take a second and think about it for a second. Especially when you're like me, when you're born, like to me, I feel like I was taught, or at least I was always under the perception that gold is the backup for money. Gold, like you have fiat currency, and then you have gold, making sure it doesn't collapse back there, holding it up, right?
Yeah, and these are the vestigial language-based remains of how effective they've been in deceiving everybody. Once the Federal Reserve was established, their campaign to overwhelm people's brains with their bullshit went into full effect. Once they managed to knock Mises out in the 1920s with Keynes and his general theory of complete nonsense, it never looked back. And they've been on a campaign ever since to redefine words and realign everybody's focus in the wrong place to keep them bamboozled about what's going on. It's always the same. Now, this thing here, first, whenever somebody uses a word like gold bug, they're immediately being, that's just an insult.
Yeah.
He's making fun of them without actually, he's just trying to put a negative connotation in people's heads about anybody who will talk about gold.
And values gold.
So gold bugs are always telling us, again, it's just a misportrayal of what's real. Where? I mean, that idea is pushed down and suppressed as much as it possibly can. So this idea that there's all of these gold bugs all over the place yelling and screaming all of this stuff it doesn't bear out. But, okay, telling us that currencies need to be backed by gold. Well, that treats the whole thing as if currency is the primary vehicle of the conceptual framework that's being dealt with here. Is it? Didn't he just finish up telling us how fiat currency works?
Yeah.
So he's established how a fiat currency is a complete disconnect from money. And then when somebody who knows what real money is, that being gold, says that currency has to be linked to real money, otherwise it doesn't function properly, what does he do? He calls them names and then inverts the relationship between currency and gold by claiming that gold isn't necessarily the money we have to use. And that's his next line. At the same time, gold bugs tell us that gold is money. So it only seems fair to ask. Hit play.
Yeah. So it only seems fair to ask, what is gold backed by?
Seems only fair to ask these people, what is gold backed by? And the answer is really nothing. There's nothing behind gold. Gold just is what it is. It's those 79 protons and 118 neutrons in the nucleus of the gold atom. Gold is very beautiful to see in real life. It makes really nice jewelry. It doesn't rust, but it's mostly not an industrial commodity.
Hit pause.
Only 10% of the...
Okay, so where is he going to go from here? You've watched this video. Does he just jump off from this point to basically jump to the other side of the currency fence and make the claim that, well, this thing that can't possibly be money, because I just told you how it's not money, but we don't really have to connect it to gold because we could just stay on the wrong side of the fence, call it crypto, spend trillions of dollars on fucking computers, and somehow that's going to be money? It's the dumbest shit on earth. Now, what did he just list here?
Hold on, we haven't watched this part of the video yet. I think what he gets into, I watched this video a little bit ago. He does explain that, yeah, gold isn't backed by anything, Bitcoin isn't backed by anything, but it doesn't matter because people value it.
That's just stupid.
I think that's what he's going to get into next year. Let's watch the rest of this.
Demand for gold is industrial, as in electronics, putting a little gold in your iPhone, for example. The remaining 90% of gold demand is this mysterious demand for a monetary good. So I often say this: if gold were to be demonetized and no longer treated by some actors as money, it would go down 90% in price, simply because industrial demand for gold is only about 10% of its value. Now, gold has a long history of being used as money. Gold used to be used as this global reserve asset that was used to settle trade imbalances. So if, for example, my country exported more stuff than it imported, I would have a surplus, a trade surplus. And so you would send me some gold from your country on a boat to make up for that trade surplus. So this is how trade imbalances were settled. The big problem with gold is that
that's how trade imbalances were settled.
There's no such thing as a trade. If there's an imbalance in an exchange, then it's not trade. Just the whole description. I mean, I know that if you look back and you read about the history of international trade, you'll read all of this stuff about how countries had to send gold back and forth to maintain this trade balance nonsense. But it's because all of the activity was being conducted by the countries. That's not trade. That's just countries sending shit back and forth to each other and then doing some bullshit calculation and saying, well, here's the gold deficit.
Yep.
They're not actually engaging. There's no pricing and there's no trade. It's just stuff being moved around and then people making up numbers later on. There's that situation that he's describing there is so far removed from what trade actually is that it's just. And then go further back up the list there.
I can't.
You can't. Because it's in the video.
I'd have to rewind the video.
Okay,
yeah.
I got it. We got to get to this point because he says in there this mysterious demand for a monetary good. That might be the single most insulting line in the whole video. It doesn't even matter how stupid it gets once he goes on to the crypto stuff. Mysterious need. Where do you think? What is he talking about? What's a monetary? That's another way that they gloss over. They paint over. They cover up what's really happening. What do you think a monetary good is?
Something that's a necessity.
It's just money.
Yeah.
Money is a good.
I'm technically right.
Money is a good, just like anything else. The only thing that's different about money is its relationship to all other goods. It's the single thing that people will trade almost anything to get so that they can then pass that on to somebody else who wants to get it for whatever they have. It makes the coincidence of wants disappear.
Mm-hmm.
That's why people wanted it. I mean, good God. Mises's paper on the money regression theorem, I think it's over 100 years old. And we still have guys like this talking about the mysterious demand for a monetary good. Oh, my God. I wish this clip would make it to this guy so that he would want to come on here and attempt to set me straight.
No,
because this video that he made is garbage.
No, I would love to have you and Matthew Creator talk about it. I really like his YouTube channels. Like I said, he's been lately he's kind of been my YouTuber trend. You know what I mean? You find those new YouTube channels where you just listen to fucking everything they do for a while. I've been listening to a lot of his shit. I do like his outlook on money and economy and crypto. I literally discovered he talks a lot about crypto stuff specifically, but he does have interesting videos like this one that I don't see a lot of other crypto guys doing. They're just like, Dogecoin 1000x going to the moon.
God, that stuff is really bad.
So that's why I've liked listening to this guy a lot more because he talks a lot about crypto, but it's never about the charts or how you're gonna make a fuck ton of money. It's more so how it affects the world, the government, our economy.
You know what's really weird is that look at this line that we're on right there. Gold, it's onerous and expensive to move around.
Onerous and expensive to move around.
Well,
yeah, it is.
Do you know how much weight you would have to move around to buy a car right now? About a pound. Boy, that's onerous. It's just BS, dude.
I,
It's
I would
always
say, okay,
oh
I
my
would say the
God.
challenge isn't moving the gold around. It's like, okay, now I have to shave this gold bar down to the exact dollar that I fucking owe you.
That's
You know,
why
that's-
that's one thing I'm willing to admit. See, and I have from the very start. Have I not always allowed for the fact that Bitcoin and these other things, there is a kernel of value at the center of it.
Mm-hmm.
And what have I always said?
That could be broken down a lot. That's the main value.
The blockchain software.
Yeah.
The idea that you can create these independent strings of transactions that are tracked so that you know who has title and you can recollect it all and edit. It's self-auditable. It's a fantastic idea. But the only way it works is if it actually represents something.
Represents these nuts.
God.
All right, let's continue a little bit of this video. I only have like maybe 10, 15 minutes left here.
All right.
And then because I have to set up the shower and stuff and get ready for it. But
You good?
let's do it. I'm going to skip forward. We went back a little bit. So let me try to find this.
Yeah, see, I want to see how he's going to make this point that
And it imported.
We
I
won't
would
get through this, but we continue this later. I mean, this whole video is 23 minutes long.
the whole point of the video is to stress we do not need to go backwards towards gold. We need to go forwards towards crypto, right?
Yeah.
And it's completely backwards.
Have a surplus, a trade surplus, and so you would send me some gold from your country on a boat to make up for that trade surplus. So this is how trade imbalances were settled. The big problem with gold is that it's very onerous and expensive to move around. We talked about how Germany repatriated its gold, and it cost something like $10 million and took 4 or 5 years. And so what people did is they just decided to leave gold in the same place. It became more and more centralized, especially in bank vaults. And then they began to issue paper claims on this gold. It was these paper claims that evolved into fiat money when Richard Nixon broke the convertibility of the dollar into
Richard
gold.
Nixon.
If gold had been easy to move around,
Well,
we would not be. in
That
the
started
current
a lot
mess that we're
earlier
in.
than that. That was just oh man.
So why don't you explain?
That's
to
really
everyone
a
what
disingenuous
Richard
way to
Nixon
say
did
that.
he's actually talking about.
So, I mean, banking to one degree or another has existed for quite a long time. But the Medici family in I believe it was in Venice when they got it started. They're the ones credited with the manifestation of what we acknowledge today as the bank. And the concept in and of itself is fine. Safe storage for your money and the ability to transact on a paper basis, which is basically just a communication of transaction. You send a confirmation to the person that you want to send money to, and they then go to the bank and the accounts are corrected. Your balance is deducted. His balance is added.
Mm-hmm.
That's the whole purpose of the establishment. Notice the establishment of the enterprise. The function of the enterprise had far greater purposes, not in the interests of the people they were supposedly going to serve. I mean, you set the thing up, and it almost immediately becomes apparent that you can just let people trade on gold that doesn't exist. You just create coupons. Just create
Like, hey,
accounts.
we owe you this amount of gold.
You just create accounts and circulate the tickets. And the only way you ever get found out is if too many people bring too many tickets and you can't cover it. And that's what a bank run is. A bank run is the discovery of the fraud. There's only one level of fraud. It's the issuance of fake money. And
is that the ultimate hustle? The bank got everyone to give them their money, and they just wrote them an IOU.
yeah, well, what's really hideous about it is that it misrepresents reality. They say it's just numbers on paper, and the more that we can do it, the more people will produce, and in the end, it's a wash, right? Like it doesn't, banks should be there to do this, to lie to everyone about what people have really saved and have available to lend to other people. that will cause them to be more productive. But the sick part is that it's not a diffuse application. Not every, if we were all participating in it to the exact same degree, it really is arbitrary. But it is never how any of it works. There's a giant freaking tower in the middle of it where a very small number of people reside up in the clouds, and then they basically piss on everybody else. If you don't know what the Cantillon effect is, it's all it says is the first receivers of fake money get to pay the low prices, and the last receivers have to pay higher prices at the income they were making when the fake money got introduced. So they're getting double screwed. They don't even receive any of the fake money, but then they're paying the highest possible price based on where their income falls in the chain in relationship to the introduction of the fake money. It's so sick. It's the most perverse way to steal from the poorest people in your population. And they are. It is. It's a perpetually self-fulfilling practice.
They never steal from other rich people.
No. And it's impossible to. You can't, because there's an overclass related to bloodlines. It's always existed. You can't get rid of it. And we're seeing just more detailed accounts of how hideous it actually is as the years go by.
I'll show you watch a few more minutes here, and then we'll wrap it up, and we can continue this next time. Or maybe you'll just you can finish watching it, and then we can talk about it.
And that's very important to remember this. In a very real sense, we can blame gold for the era of fiat money. If you're enjoying this video so far, please
that's
hit that
ridiculous,
like button,
just on its face.
But I see what he's
with a.
Okay, no.
Say, though.
All of these things, all of this stuff, that is, I mean, how stupid. Gold is an inanimate object. It can't make anybody do anything. How do you assign blame to a metal? Still,
without it being backed by anything, because there's nothing behind gold. So why did gold bugs insist that Bitcoin needs to be backed by something?
I just need to make it clear. Gold is backed by the realities of what choosing individuals do. Gold is the single best fulfillment of the theoretical conclusion that you reach when you develop the use of money through the principle of choice and exchange. That's it. That's what gold is backed by. Gold is backed by reality. This idea that gold isn't backed by anything. Gold is money. There is no other thing that has ever fit the definition that comes from the theoretical derivation of what people will do, given that they want sooner rather than later, and they prefer more to less. That's it. Those two things. Those two things and the material reality that we exist in dictate that money is best fulfilled by using gold. That's all there is. This idea that it's not backed by anything is just hogwash. It's terrible.
So what
terrible
you're saying
thinking.
Is like we back it up ourselves. Like gold isn't backed up by anything, as in sense there isn't like any like other sort of currency behind it. But since we value gold, that backs it up.
We either recognize that gold is the thing that fits the theoretical gap in the puzzle, or we don't, to our detriment. What we experience now with the way that the government taxes and spends and doesn't, it's just an absolute frickin' free-for-all for overqualified, overeducated, know-nothing, do-nothing bureaucrats spending billions upon billions of dollars. They are causing every problem. You can't give them more and expect to solve a problem. The only way to make any of these things better is to unwind some of this, and that takes a monumental number of people with strong wills to dedicate themselves to understanding it. But it's
And
over.
understanding money.
It's over. Nobody cares. They don't care. I mean, I can't think of a single aspect of
even
what's
if they
going
do
on right
care,
now
doesn't, like-
that even has a possibility of improving.
I think most people don't care because even if they did care, what difference does it make if everybody cares?
Well, if people cared enough to approach where I'm at, as far as what I've read and how much I've thought about it, nobody could get elected because everybody would just refuse to ever vote. Voting would die as a practice, necessarily, because once you understand that the introduction of any kind of an influence of force on your choices on a day-to-day basis completely upends the natural relationship between individuals that actually produces anything real.
I think Mises has a line about that saying incentives are more motivating than forces.
Absolutely. And what do?
Force.
They relabel their force as incentives. Weird, isn't it? Oh, yeah. Here's an incentive. Here's an $8,000 tax credit on your $80,000 electric truck. Oh, wait. I just had to raise the price of my truck $8,000. So they're giving out tax credits that are only going to be available to people who are out of range of actually being affected by any tax increase.
Right.
So basically, all of the rich people are going to get to go and buy a truck and get a tax credit that is eaten up by the manufacturer raising the price.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to go buy an $80,000 truck for $88,000 and get an $8,000 tax credit, and the manufacturer got to sell an $80,000 truck for $88,000.
And you got a really fucking cool new Cybertruck.
And what's the only thing that happens? The government is now minus $8,000, and that has to be filled back in. So create a deficit, claim to be creating an incentive, deliver a payoff, and leave the gap. They always leave the gap. It's always left over. That's why it's $1 trillion deficit to infinity from here. And there's not a budget in the future that has a deficit of less than $1 trillion. We're already over 30 trillion. That doesn't even describe the actual debt situation. And all these idiots that run around and they just keep doing the same damn things. All you public employees, all you bankster gangsters, all of you gotta do something. You gotta, I mean, good grief. Entertainment. If you wanted to actually see things get better for normal people, what are some of the first things we could do as individuals?
Shut down social media for a little bit.
Oh, social media shutdown would be absolutely excellent. But every single person with these ridiculously overinflated incomes in entertainment and sports, I think number one. Everybody in those industries.
You saying LeBron James makes too much money?
Yeah, you get 25 grand next year, LeBron. That's it. Because I don't even think the way you play basketball, I don't think the way any of these guys play basketball is worth $100,000 a year. What do? You run around on a fucking basketball court. Who gives a shit? It doesn't produce anything. The only thing it does is it produces a spectacle to attract a lot of eyes. And the only reason those eyes are looking to you is because they're so dissatisfied with other parts of their life. You ever notice that people who that they have fulfilling days, like their days are full, they don't watch sports. They don't really watch any entertainment at all. They're doing things.
So are you a creator or a consumer? Is what you're saying.
All of these freaking, just pure expense rotations. Entertainment, sports. I mean, the sports shit with the taxpayer subsidized palaces and everything. I mean, good God, the amount of currency abuse and population abuse that has taken place in order to deliver these guys to this ridiculous situation that they're in now. It's grotesque. The Lakers are considering paying a guy $47 million to not play this year.
Who's that?
Look into it. You'll find out. It's you can't make this shit up. I don't know. Professional athletes and entertainers, all of the compensation at the tops of these
But
are
it's a
just
business,
absolutely
though, dude. It's
grotesque.
a business.
No, it's
and
not.
Certain names sell tickets. Certain names sell merchandise.
It's not a
Certain
business.
names bring in money.
It's not a business.
It is, though.
No, it's not.
It is. We'll have to continue it later on. Ginger Jesus, thanks for hopping in, brother. Well, this was fun. We can continue this video later, too, next time here. Sorry I'm kind of ending it here. I just still grinding away at work, you know. Maybe one day I'll be able to sit down with Phil all evening.
He seems to be delivering, you know, little nuggets of gold all throughout this
I'm telling you,
narration.
you'll like this guy's YouTube channel, dude. I'll send you a shit. Watch some of it. Watch some of his other videos. I sent you the one. I think that was about Ethereum going from proof of work to proof of stake. Is that the one I sent you that he did?
Oh, I remember watching that. It all sounded like absolute nonsense to me, but
yeah,
I don't see how the distinction between one or the other is going to save it from basically just being an element of the fiat currency pyramid anyway. They're not avoiding anything.
Ginger Jesus, thanks for tuning in. I'll shoot you a message with that clip. I haven't sent it, but I got your email now. And thank you for everyone else for hopping in and out during the stream too. Phil, anything else? We'll be back next week, hopefully with Pastor Joseph and some other people. But if not, Phil and I will get together and we'll pick this back up too.
That sounds good.
I choose Doug Life. Doug Life shows me.
Billy out.